All right, I'm currently on the phone with Paul. He's another musician that reached out about the interview series. So I'm going to go ahead and give him the chance to introduce himself.
Hi, my name is Paul Aston, and I'm a musician and producer based in England. And I currently record under the artist name of Future Analog. Um, I mostly produce electronic music in the retro wave, synth pop genre. And I've been playing music and writing music since I was about 14. Um, Always been fascinated with electronic music, well, music in general, really. And my initial love of music was sparked off probably by the new wave movement in the 80s. I'm in my 50s now. And I went from there. And obviously, the most accessible instrument to me at the time was a cheap keyboard, which I taught myself to play. And I've gone on from there to start writing and recording. I was in a band a few years ago, which didn't really last very long, unfortunately. And I had a big gap in my music career. But I started again about 2.5 years ago. Started self-releasing songs. People were enjoying them. They were getting radio play. And then I wrote a song called Sinners, which was played on some radio stations. And I thought this song could be really popular. It's got that kind of feel to it. So I started sending out a record to record companies. I was lucky enough to get signed last August, and they released Sinners as a single a year ago today, actually. And from then, I've gone on to release more singles, and 2 months ago, I released my first album with them.
All right, so that kind of gives us a lot to kind of go into depth about, but let's start kind of back at the beginning. You mentioned that, your first accessible instrument was a keyboard. Tell me a little bit before that about how you found music and it made a connection to you that made you want to pursue it.
I've always, when I was growing up as a child, I always had surrounded by music. Both my parents were huge music fans, and my sister, who's a bit older than me, was into a lot of bands. So there's always music on in my house, and early synth pop bands such as Soft Cell, new wave like Duran Duran and Tears for Fears, and bands like that, and Visage and Japan. And that's where my love of music came from. I was exposed to a lot of this music when I was younger, and just grew to absolutely love it, and developed a kind of fascination and analytical fascination with music and how it was made. And I'd listen to something and say, how on earth was that done? And I'd find out. I'd go and buy books, or I'd buy magazines to find out how it was done. And then I bugged my father for months to buy me a keyboard, which he finally did for Christmas when I was 13. It was a Casio VL1, absolute basic keyboard, but it taught me how to write and how to play the keyboard, and also how to program, because it had a very basic synthesizer in it. And from there, that's where I went from there. And I bought more keyboards, bought a drum machine. And I think that when I was 18, I bought my first proper synthesizer, which was a Roland synth, a sequencer, and a drum machine, and I was away. And I've never lost the love of it. I stopped for a number of years because I had a family, and also, to be perfectly honest, a particularly bad marriage whereby she didn't like me doing music. So I stopped for a long time, but my new partner positively encouraged me to go back into it, never thinking I would get anywhere at all, and just was absolutely stunned that I have. And so really, it's a testament to, if you really love making music or you have a passion for it, just keep doing it, because you never know. Somebody might hear something you've done and it could go somewhere. You just really don't know. I never planned this at all, and I've been incredibly lucky.
Well, let's kind of go back to the initial keyboard there. How did you kind of go about learning it? You mentioned that some of your influences drove you to wanting to learn keyboard and things like that. But did you do like private lessons, or did you just kind of figure it out on your own? What was kind of your process for getting into it?
Well, at the time I was at school and I'd done music for 2 years. Never really found, didn't find it interesting in the slightest when I was at school, because we were taught in a classical way. But I discovered that I could read music. I'd remembered how to do it. So um, music artists that were around at the time that I was into, probably the biggest one at the time was probably Howard Jones, because pure electronic. And I bought some of his songbooks. Um, his first album, Humans Live, I had the songbook. I learned to play it from cover to cover. And that's how I basically learned how to play the keyboard, by playing music from other people's songbooks. And that's basically how it started for me.
Okay. And then, so from there, once you kind of felt comfortable with it and kind of moved into more of the creative atmosphere,
Uh-huh.
um, did you just kind of put together synthesizer pieces, or did you have kind of a fuller band set in mind? What was kind of your creative intent?
Well, when I'm moving forward a few years, I got my first proper synthesizer. I was at university then. I had a synthesizer, a sequencer, a drum machine, a 4-track tape recorder, and I was writing songs, complete songs, um, but just for fun, really. Never thought I'd get anywhere with them. Never thought I'd be able to do anything with them. And I then responded to an advert in a local newspaper to join a band. They had a drummer, a bass player, a singer, and a guitarist, and they wanted a keyboard player. And I met up with them, and they didn't have any songs at all, none. They were just jamming basically. And of course, I had all these songs which were finished, so I integrated my sound with theirs, so all the songs were played with a full band. And I did that for about 2 years. We did some gigs locally, but it didn't really work out for various reasons. And I went back to playing music on my own, really. Just a bedroom musician, just for fun.
Okay. And then, so once you kind of found yourself back in that environment, doing it for fun on your own, um,
Hmm.
were you recording stuff on your own and then putting it out there, or at that point was it kind of all just taking up space on your hard drive kind of thing?
Basically, yeah, it was taking up space on the hard drive. I mean, that was before you could do um, hard drive recording. So I was using computer sequencers and 4-track tape recorders, but that's as far as it went. It never left my studio, as it were. Um, I, I had quite a few songs which were complete, but they never, other than my immediate family and friends, nobody ever heard them. Um, One song interested me from that time when I was 19. I wrote, and I've actually finished it finally last year, and it's on my album. But the initial song, I wrote that when I was 19, and that's one that I've been, playing with since I was 19. And I finally managed to record it and release it.
Okay. Well, let's jump ahead to once you got back into music and kind of rediscovered your passion for it.
Uh-huh.
Once you kind of found yourself in a better environment that was conducive to you being creative, what were kind
Yeah.
of your first steps there? Just, relearning the keyboard, or was it kind of just like, picking up a bike and you were ready to go again?
Well, I already had um, a basic MIDI controller keyboard, and I was playing around with DAWs. I'd learned how to use those. Even in the time I was writing music, I'd always played around with them a little bit, never really done anything with them. So I learned how to use them. And then for my 50th birthday, my partner bought me a synthesizer, and that's what kicked it back off. I started playing the keyboard again just for fun. Um, my initial idea was like, I'm going to just learn to play again, enjoy playing, do a few cover versions because they're always fun. And then I was in the middle of doing one. I was enjoying creating the music so much. I thought, I think I can turn this into a song of my own. And that's what I did. And from there, it just didn't stop. I haven't stopped writing, and that's about 2.5 years now. And yeah, I've not really suffered any creative block since then. Um, Other influences, later on, are kind of being felt in my music, because there are other, later synth pop bands which I got into when I was a bit older, such as Depeche Mode, who are probably my favorite band of all time. You can hear their influence in my music. Other artists such as Vince Clarke, you can hear his influence in my music. So I'm very much a synth pop guy. I love 80s music, but it's 80s music done in a modern way. Not It's not the 80s anymore, so you have to do it in a modern way. But I love 80s synth sounds, drum machines, and that's how it started again for me. And I've just carried on going down that road. Um, I self-released an album last year, which is I would call probably quite dark synth pop, 9 tracks on it, and it did okay. Obviously, I didn't have anybody behind me helping me promote it. I did everything myself. Didn't have a clue how to do it, but I learned. Um, and once that was released, I carried on writing, and it was my partner who said, "Well, your music, is of a certain type, but it's not you know it won't be commercially popular," because she didn't think it'd be commercially popular. She said, "Try writing something a bit more upbeat, a bit more popular." So that's what I did, with Sinners, and that's what got me through the door with the record company. I've been with a year now, and I'm still going, and now I'm actually producing for other people too. So it's been amazing, to be honest with you, to go from nothing to this. It's blown my mind.
Yeah, that's great. That must, make you feel really good and validated to kind of just get back into it, and then to have so many people, recognize your talent and want to be a part of it.
Well, that's the thing. You don't realize that it's any good. And I think anybody would say that who writes music or does anything creatively. You do it. It's in your head. You don't know if it's any good. And I'm obviously my biggest critic, and I think everything I do is no good. It's just an automatic thing. How other people react to it make you think, okay, maybe I can do this. Maybe I can write something that people like. But you don't know that when you start. You just do what you think sounds good. But yeah, I've just absolutely blown away with the reaction from people. I've had national radio play. It's my stuff's been played all over the world now. It's just out of this world, really.
So tell me about this project specifically. Obviously, you're getting recognition for it, but let's talk about what it is, and what your intention for is. Where do you want to see it go?
Well, I'm currently, as I said, performing and writing and recording under the name Future Analog, and from the name you can probably get where I'm coming from is that I try and create retro influenced music, but with modern influences. And some of the things that are written about me say that is that my music is very retro influenced, but with modern elements like modern house beats and modern dance beats, that sort of thing. So it's kind of a fusion of the two. And my intention is just to carry on really recording and writing in that genre, but also to produce for others, which is something I've always wanted to do. As well as songwriting, I really enjoy just pure production. Somebody bringing me a demo song, which can be, literally very basic, or it can be a complete song, and letting me loose with it and doing something different with it or interpreting it differently. And I want to continue to do that also. And I've just finished my second project with that as well, and I'm getting asked more and more to do that. And again, that's another thing which I really enjoy, and in some ways find less stressful than writing.
So do you think down the line, as you continue to be involved in music, that you'll find yourself in more of a producer role, or is that kind of just something you're doing now to kind of get yourself to the next phase of of your career?
I hope to do both, but I can kind of see it going that way. I'm getting people come to me because they're hearing what I'm doing, and they're more and more people saying, "Well, could you have a go with this song, see what you can do with it?" So obviously they must like my sound and what I do. So I think I'm probably going to get more and more requests like that. And if I do, it leaves less time for me to write and record my own music. But I want to do both. And though I released an album in June, just in June, I've got new songs I've written since, which I'm producing. So I haven't stopped. I'm doing both, and I want to carry on doing both.
So tell me about what your most prominent and favorite memories are from working in music. What kind of keeps you motivated to continue to do it?
To continue to do it. I think for me, it's probably the first time. One of the biggest things for me was the first time I heard one of my songs on the radio, um, and this is ooh, nearly 2 years ago now. And it's a song which I wrote, which is on my first album. It's called Your Heart, and it's the last song I wrote for the album. It's a very dark synth pop influenced song, um, and I'd not been on the radio before, and I sent it into an internet station, thinking, "Nah, they won't play it." And they did, and I was like, "Wow, this is just for somebody who grew up listening to the radio, and that was really the only way you could hear new music. To hear one of my songs on the radio was huge. It's just huge to me, and I think anybody of my age who was doing music would probably feel the same, because we didn't have Spotify, we didn't have Apple Music or any other way to consume music. It was either on the radio, you had to go and buy it from a shop. So to hear one of my songs on the radio was just like a wow moment, absolutely amazing. And I think that was a real pivotal moment for me. And to have people say, "Well, we heard your song on the radio. It's great. It's great. Wow, we didn't know you could do this," that sort of thing. And other than that, it's just been things like that again, and more of the same, more radio play. Um, the record company getting involved, saying that, they wanted to sign me, which I just couldn't believe at the time. But I think it's one of the most important things to me now, and it always will be, is when I write something new, the first person to hear it apart from myself is my partner, and her opinion is more important than mine. So the pivotal thing for me was playing her the first time one of my new, a song that I'd written, and seeing her reaction. So the two things, I think, the radio play and the reaction of my partner to the first song I'd written for her, probably 16 to 18 years.
So you're writing this stuff, you're putting it out there, and you're getting it released. You're getting recognition as well as producing. Where can people find you and listen to the stuff that you're putting out?
Well, I'm on all the major music streaming services: Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube Music, Deezer, Amazon Music. I'm also on. You can also listen and purchase my music on Bandcamp. I think it's something like 23 or 24 different streaming services all feature my music. Both the music which I self released, and also the music that's now being released to me by the record company. If you search me, Future Analog, on Spotify, Apple Music, etc., you will see my entire catalog.
Awesome, perfect. And I'll definitely make sure that I get all that stuff linked into this interview description as well. So I always like to give the person I'm interviewing the opportunity to put out their last word. So what's a message you want to put out there to people that you feel you resonate with?
One thing I would like to say to people is, and this will appeal to anybody who's trying to be creative, whether it's in music or any of the arts, never give up. If you do it for the love to begin with, but just never give up. You never know where it can take you. And if anything you take anything from my story, that's very much where I am. I never would have believed 2.5 years ago this would have happened to me. So I would say, if you're being creative, you're writing music or whatever it is you're doing creatively, never give up, and just be yourself. Do what makes you happy. Write the song that makes you happy, and you never know. Somebody out there was going to hear it and think, "Wow, this is amazing," and it could just happen for you like it has for me.